A CNN interview with Netanyahu, warning beware of any unforeseen bullshit.
Charges against you and Gallant is, quote, starvation of civilians as a method of warfare. Now, I know that Israel repeatedly claims that enough aid is getting in, and there is not purposeful starvation, and those claiming otherwise are misinformed, are lying. Is Israel going to send a delegation to The Hague to present any evidence to defend itself?
I think these charges are exactly as President Biden called them. They're outrageous. They're beyond outrageous. This is a rogue prosecutor that has put false charges and created false symmetries that are both dangerous and false. And the first false symmetry is he equates the democratically elected leaders of Israel with the terrorist tyrants of Hamas. That's like saying that, well, I'm issuing, arrest warrants for FDR and Churchill, but also for Hitler. Or I'm issuing arrest warrants for George Bush, George W. Bush, but also for bin Laden. That's absurd. Secondly, the charges are completely false. Let's take this charge of starvation. We've put in 500,000 tons of trucks of food and medicine for this population. We've taken 20,000 trucks. We've paved roads to put those trucks in. We've opened border crossings that Hamas closed down. I've had airdrops that have facilitated sea route supplies. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. You should know this. I mean, the prices of food in Gaza has dropped by 80%. The markets don't lie. They talk about 23, I think, or 30 cases of malnutrition in a population of 2 million. Okay. The United States in 2022 had 20,000 deaths of malnutrition. That's 3 times more than in Gaza. This is completely false. It's the kind of slander that has been leveled at the Jewish people for ages, and it's renewed now against the Jewish state. It was false then, it's false now. But one thing, this prosecutor, this rogue prosecutor, didn't even bother to come here. He said he'd come here to check the facts. He didn't check the facts. He just went out and demonized the Jewish state, and he's taking the ICC down the route of the General Assembly that passes infinite resolutions, flat earth resolutions against Israel, or the Human Rights Council that used to have a reputation that is completely blown because half the resolutions are against Israel, not against Iran, not against North Korea, not against Syria. It's the same thing. It's outrageous. And false. And dangerous because it endangers every democracy.
We should note, though, it's not just the ICC expressing concerns about the lack of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. President Biden and his administration and their officials, not to mention European allies of Israel and their officials, they've all been making this case for months that Israel is not letting enough aid in. So when President Biden expresses concern about you not letting enough aid in, is he wrong?
Well, no, we had the same concerns. We were trying to get the aid in. We got the aid in, and Hamas was looting the aid. That's what was happening. They were taking it for themselves or extorting the population. We were letting the aid in from the start. And look, this was my directive from day one. The day one thing was we have to provide, we comport with international law. We comport with the rules of war. We have to get those trucks in. We're getting hundreds of trucks every day in. And that's been an aspect of our conduct of war because we try to get civilians out of harm's way. We've done things that no country, no army has done in history. It's not me saying that. It's General Petraeus saying that. The head of the urban warfare at West Point, Colonel John Spencer, says it. Israel's gone out of its way both in humanitarian aid and getting civilians out of harm's way with millions of text messages, millions of phone calls and leaflets that we've been dropping, giving up the element of surprise. Israel is given here a bum rap. I think it's dangerous because basically it's the first democracy that is being taken to the dock when it is doing exactly what democracy should be doing in an exemplary way. I think it will endanger all other democracies. Israel may be first, you're next, Britain is next, others are next too. And the second thing that is dangerous about this, Jake, is I think this fans the fires of anti-Semitism that are raging on American campuses and throughout Western capitals. They're pouring gas. He just poured gasoline on it, this rogue prosecutor, Khan. Because, people initially will think this is serious. They think the ICC, this is a serious thing. It's not. Well, it's a travesty of justice, and it's a pack of lies.
Let me ask you, because what Hamas did on October 7th, just to make this clear, what Hamas did is abhorrent, as is the refusal to return the hostages. Abhorrent. But whether or not it was Israel's intent, tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians, including countless children, have been killed and maimed by the IDF in your war against Hamas. Is there anything you and the IDF could have done any differently to avoid all the loss of innocent lives in Gaza?
First of all, every civilian casualty is a tragedy. Every child lost, or every woman lost, or every innocent person lost is a tragedy. But for Hamas, it's a strategy. So while we go out of our way to get them out of harm's way, Hamas goes out of its way to keep them in harm's way, shooting at them if they try to leave the battle zones. But many have left. Thankfully, I can say that. Now, the ratio, because of our actions, the ratio of civilians to combatants killed is the lowest in the history of urban warfare, and certainly dense urban warfare like this. It's about 1 to 1. There are about 14,000 casualties, 14 to 15,000 terrorists killed, and an equal amount of civilians that were unfortunately killed, because that's what happens. But in other arenas, in Fallujah, with a handful of terrorists, 3,000, 4,000 compared to 35,000 in Gaza, the ratio was much bigger than that. The same thing in Mosul. So we've gone out of our way to stop it. And let me tell you, I think that the numbers are also inflated. You know, the UN organizations that are dominated by Hamas in Gaza is giving false information, as is Hamas itself. And people believe these numbers. The other day they came and said, well, you know, it's about 35,000 who are killed, but 10,000 of those we said are women and children. Now we can't say that. We don't know who they are.
Whatever the numbers are, it's too many.
In the meantime, the lie circles. Well, look, yes, one is too many, but the reason they're there, the reason we have civilian casualties at all, is because Hamas is preventing them from leaving. I'm happy to say that in the Rafah operation that we've conducted, 1 million people actually left. People said, well, there are 1 million people, 1.2 million, in Gaza. Where are they going to go? They're going to be trapped. Well, 1,950,000 have already left, and there are very few civilian casualties because we're doing everything to get them out. This is our policy. It's humanitarian, it's responsible, we comport with the laws of war, and we're the ones taken to the dock. And it doesn't give any solace that they're also taking these killers of Hamas, these murderers, and putting them in the dock. As I said, yeah, Hitler's in the dock, but so is FDR, and so is Eisenhower. Absurd.
After 7 months of unity for your wartime government, there seems a lot of disagreement now about your plans for Gaza, or lack thereof, after a major military operations in Gaza is over. Benny Gantz wants a plan, or he says he's going to leave your government. Your defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says you don't have a plan. He's basically accusing you of trying to lay the groundwork for an occupation, either civilian or military, in Gaza in the future. Are you denying that the plan is for an occupation of Gaza, or are you taking it off the table?
Hi there. Did you know you can...
הגענו לפה לחסימה, צומת נחושה, לצערנו משאיות עברו, לא הצלחנו למנוע אותם, אבל כל אחד שהגיע לפה הוא גיבור, ואנחנו ביחד מנצחים את האויב, ויש מחר עוד חסימות ועוד חסימות. תבואו מחר עוד פעם, כל מקום יש חסימות. עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. תבואו, תחסמו, תחפשו מקומות, תסתכלו בגוגל, תפנו אליי, אנא ערף. חשוב לעשות מסעות הסיוע לחמאס, רק ככה ננצח, רק ככה נחזיר את החטופים שלנו. רק ככה ננצח. רק של כל השמאלנים. ככה ננצח. חבר'ה, לבוא, לחסום בכל מקום שיש.